Hey, hi, hello! My name is Fox Arie, and welcome to Fox Thoughts. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about Shadow Generations, which is the brand new campaign that just came out with the release of Sonic X Shadow Generations. I don't have much to say about the Sonic portion of this re-release slash half brand new release kind of thingamajig that's going on here. Uh, baseline, it's a really fun game. I come back to it often. I do have a little bit to say about its dialogue changes, but I'm going to save that for the end of the episode because I really wanted to focus on the shadow stuff here. There's a lot for me to say, and unlike Sonic Generations, which has been discussed to death over the past, 13 years has it been since it released? There is a lot to talk about since Shadow Gens is the new kid on the block with the Glock. So let's fire away and see what we have here. Oh yeah, and I will not be talking about spoilers for both story and gameplay and anything else in between for the most part. For the majority of this episode, I will try to avoid just general like design gimmick spoilers and basically whatever I feel like would be a nice surprise for people to go into in terms of not knowing what's going on there. I'm assuming most people who will be listening to this already has a great idea of what's inside Shadow Generations. It's not that long of an experience, despite that it's really good though. But just to play it safe, for whatever reason, I will not dig into spoilers until near the end. I'll specify when spoilers are happening, but I will just say right now, if you like 3D Sonic games, you should play Shadow Generations before looking at any media discussing it. It really is wonderful. Of course, if you have the means to. If you don't, well, I'm sorry. That's unfortunate. But that aside, let's start where any other game starts. The menus. I ironically love menus in games. I love looking at the options menu. It's usually the first thing I like to look at as soon as possible when popping up a game for the first time, if it has one. Of course, older games don't really have that most of the time, and even newer games, like when you start up, just kind of shoot you to the action every once in a while, depending on the game. But more often than not, if there's a brand new game that I just get, whatever it may be, I love to see the options. Both because menus are so fun for me to like flick through, even if there's not much there, but also I just like taking in how much effort the developers put into the menus. It isn't indicative of the whole experience, but for me personally, if you put time and nice effort into a menu or UI or whatever the case may be across the board, that kind of is its own seal of quality. Again, that isn't always true, but I feel like, generally speaking, if you think critically about how you like to present the game, maybe the game itself would be good. Of course, there's some instances throughout the medium where, it's all flash and no substance, but not always the case, thankfully. But that aside, wow, the UIs in this game, all the UIs in this game look wonderful. They're just so fun and pleasing. The nice red, white, and black combo popping out of you. Oh, it's so nice. I love it so much. I honestly I'm not really a big fan of original Sonic Generations' UI. It's a bit much for me. It's not terrible. It gets the job done, but I feel like there's too many colors going on there for me. Just a little too much. Shadow Generations, of course, being focusing on the Hedge Edge himself. Limited color palette, iconic three colors. It looks wonderful. I love it. It's really, really fun. And also the UI sounds are just fun to dink through, like dunk, dunk, dunk. So I like it a lot. And it is really, really enjoyable for me. A very pleasant experience going through the menu options. All right, no more playing around. Let's dig into the real meat and potatoes. Gameplay. Gameplay of Shadow Generations. I have a lot to say, so I'm going to try to figure out how I even want to put it. I guess let's just start with the moment to moment gameplay. This game, like Sonic Frontiers, is broken up into two chunks. You have traditional levels Oh my god, my friend's playing Super Lesbian Animal RPG. Sorry, that is not related to anything. I was just jump scare. Anyway, we have two chunks here. We have the like linear, like 3D Sonic type of levels, very very akin to original generations for the record. Good. And then we have one decently big open zone area, like the different islands in Sonic Frontiers. So they're both really great. Let's start with the more traditional levels first. There isn't a lot. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head how many they are. I think there is 5 or 6, something like that. There isn't a lot of leverage levels here, but what is here is really really well done. I generally like the picks that they chose. Um, and I think it's just nice. They're all well designed. So many paths. Like it's a game that's begging for you to experiment with which different ways you want to go to get faster times or see different routes, and the collectibles too. Oh my gosh, the collectibles! There's 3 collectibles per act, and also per challenge level. Just like original generations, there's these challenge levels tied to the different levels in general, the different zones. I should say specifically. So there's 3 collectibles for most of them, like all the acts and most of the challenge levels, and they're really really fun. Sometimes they lead you into the fastest optimal route in like a traditional playthrough, or maybe there's like off the beaten path and you have to be a little clever, or like keep your eyes out. Usually they're really really good about putting the collectibles and very interesting, and but like not bullshit ways in the traditional levels, right? And that's something I really appreciate a lot. I generally don't like to collect Sonic collectibles when it comes to like the red rings or anything similar to that. And the other games that I've played, which is like Sonic Colors and yeah, Unleash had it with the medallions. I think it was. Generations Red Rings also wasn't that fun for me either. This, oh my gosh, my favorite linear level collectibles in the entire franchise from what I've played. Oh, they just work. They're just in places that it feels so good. The only times, like, there's only been like 2 times where I didn't like the placements of them in the entire playthrough. But even then, I think it's just a me thing. I don't really think it's the game's fault. Okay, except for one, but I'll be talking about that one way later. Don't you worry. I will remember this. I will, I promise. But that aside, they're just placed really well. And that as well, I should probably talk about Shadow's movement in this game. He moves really nice. It's very akin to how Sonic feels in the most recent update of Sonic Frontiers. If you didn't know, they updated the game throughout its first year of launch, and they retooled how Sonic felt and the cyberspace levels, and they made him feel much more better to play, from what I've heard and what I've also felt myself with my crinkly fingers. But Shadow feels like that, but more refined. Also in the options menu, and when it comes to mechanics and movement, there's only one like just general like slider instead of like the bunch of sliders from Frontiers for Shadow's movement, and it's deceleration. You can either make him stop at a dime just completely, or you can make him like slow down. It's not even the biggest deal. Obviously in terms of like mastering speed and everything, and not trying to fall off the platforms, you would probably want to keep it at the where he stops instantly. But if you like the feel of like, after you stop, like the character moves a little bit forward, like no matter the speed, that's also an option. The different varying degrees of off and on. Very cool. I am very appreciative of that. It's not really the biggest deal in the world, but that's nice. And having the game itself, finally tune itself in terms of the devs, like testing and seeing what works and what doesn't, is much better than me or like the player base in general figuring it out for themselves. Because although options are nice, basically telling your player, here are the tools to like make the player character feel good to move around, instead of just having that out the gate, just like in many many different values that probably should have been figured out by the development team. That's not the greatest feeling. I really didn't like that, and it made me feel like I was kind of doing something wrong throughout my entire playthrough of Sonic Frontiers. But here in Shadow Gens, not a problem at all. Just out the gate, game worked. It was fun. Shadow moves really, really good. And I understand if you're like, oh my god, it feels like Sonic Frontiers. It's definitely way better than that. Not as blistering fast as Sonic Generations in terms of Sonic, zooming and zipping through, but it still is a decent bit fast. I would like it to be a little bit faster in future games, but that's just a me thing. I know other people have shared the same sentiment in general, but that's just kind of the vibe where I'm feeling. It's really good where it is. That's just my preferred kind of feeling, but otherwise, general level design, including the collectibles for the linear levels, phenomenal. Really, really fun optional paths, really fun gimmicks, and etc. They're just great. Now, for the open zone area, you get this one jungle gym, really fun open zone filled with collectibles and these chests you can unlock with the collectibles within the linear levels. It's good. It's really well designed as well. It feels like the best elements taken from Sonic Frontiers open zones, the islands and like all that good stuff, just really fine tuned in one big juicy area, and it's just really really fun to run through. There's also these little like panels that you can step on to activate challenges, and they all make sense because they're speed based. They're all about traversing around the world, and it's really really fun. I really didn't mind the simple whatever kind of puzzle stuff in Sonic Frontiers. Also, I apologize if me comparing this to Frontiers a lot is annoying. This it's the most recent game of the franchise, and it was kind of like a point of contention type of deal of like, oh, where they're gonna go from here? Are they gonna falter? Are they gonna do well? But so understand that I'm lovingly comparing this to its, like its predecessor, simply for the case of, hey, here's all the things they're doing great, and here are some of the things that not so great, but it's mostly great. I promise. Oh, please don't kill me. Oh, it's fine. But for the sake of trying to like express how really good is what's going on here, there's a lot to compare, and for good reason. It just does a lot, if not almost everything, better. But moving on forward, I'm just really happy that Sonic Team figured out what worked in the open zones of Frontiers and what didn't, made a really good and fun experience to jump around and collect stuff in if you want, then continue on forward. Most of it is optional, which is, pretty fair. I think a nice mix of some things being a little bit mandatory, but not feeling very cheap or strange as it did in original Frontiers. I guess that's the best way for me to explain it. Just short term, I don't want to focus too much on all that as of right now, but just a good mix of what they did then and what they're doing now, especially what they're doing now, would definitely be ideal for another Frontiers inspired game, or not inspired, sequel. You get the ding ding, I shmia dia. So, moving along, I really like it. It's good. It's really good. And also they really heavily, incredibly fixed the problem where you can't just go to the end of a reward for Frontiers, like for the collectibles in the open zone area. Most of these rewards you have to find and do organically. There's a few where you can cheese it, but besides that, it's good. They fixed it, and they made it feel more natural. They made it feel more nice, smooth, and just so good. It's just really fun to just run around and just see what's there and what's what. I'm personally not interested in 100%ing this open zone area. It's fun, and the stuff you get is nice to see, more often than not. But it really isn't something that I'm yearning for. I had a lot of fun exploring many, many nooks and crannies, but it's getting to the point where, it's starting to get towards the end of all the collectibles, and it feels more tedious and fun because there's no way to have any sort of ability or any sort of thing to detect the final parts of, not parts, but the final, pieces of the collectibles. I think a nice little ability, both for this game, but also especially for the next, this kind of Sonic game entry going forward. It would be really nice if that was some sort of ability or thing. Maybe you could spend half of your rings to see where the nearest collectible is in like in a general area. I think something like that could definitely work. I'm not exactly sure what is the solution here, but some sort of way for the game to give you an idea of, hey, you want to finish collecting all these collectibles? Well, then spend some ring or other currency or whatever the case may be, so I can tell you the general vicinity. Something. I think that would really work out instead of pulling out your hair and trying to find a final whatever's. I am not about that life. I'm not too concerned about 100% in games most of the time. But hey, besides that, just taking things as is and discovering new ways to get to old places. Really, really good. Pretty much perfect in my opinion. Exactly what I wanted from Frontiers, and I gotta say this in general. This is what I wanted Frontiers to be. Well, besides, going back to levels and, Sonic history past, that's not really something I necessarily wanted from Frontiers. But the general idea is we have these fantastically crafted and immaculate, linear levels, and it's really, really fun and engaging open zone. So I really, really hope in terms of gameplay, this keeps going forward. This is exactly what I wanted a sequel to Frontiers to be, so I'm really happy to have it here. I wasn't expecting it to have it here. In fact, I was kind of expecting, or mostly expecting, Shadow Generations to be a more linear Sonic experience, because I greatly enjoy linear 3D Sonic. That's my favorite type of Sonic game. Um, but this has really changed my mind. This is making me want a Frontiers 2. That is a wonderful thing for any game to, do, to like let you see like something from before, realize its potential way, way more than before, and then make you want more. There's a lot of or in that sentence. We gotta have a bit of an or break, but anyway, I don't really have anything else to say about that. I think that pretty much covered all my bases in terms of general, like overall gameplay. Now I want to dig into abilities. I'm not gonna get too like nitty gritty about this stuff again for the sake of spoilers and etc. I kind of already have been pushing the line a bit, but I'm gonna reel it back, so don't worry. But I will say all of the abilities are really fun. There is one ability that has a bit of a learning curve, and it kind of really sucks in terms of how the game explains it to you. It doesn't explain it well enough. I understand they didn't want to have too many text boxes for an initial explanation because it's like, oh, I don't want to do my reading homework in a Sonic game. Oh, I don't play a fucking game, But it is an ability that needs a little bit more explanation than all the others, but otherwise, everything else feels wonderful. Even that ability that's a little bit more complicated, it's not that bad. It's just you have to understand how to really use it in order to enjoy using it. It's not the greatest, it's the most finicky in my playtime, but it's good. It works for what it is. And I will talk more about it once we get to the spoiler section as well. But that aside, all the abilities are really fun. Either a natural extension of Shadow's abilities just in general, or just easier ways to traverse around the open zone or the levels, and it's just good. They're all good, and I really like all of them. All right, challenge levels. So like I was saying before, this game has like little challenge levels per act per zone. Two per act, by the way. So what do we got here? What do we got? Good, more good stuff. They're all, I believe, they're all modified versions of those acts, just in a way that fits suits some sort of challenge, and all of them that I've played are fun. Now, there's a couple that are definitely a little bit on the harder side, and that's fun in its own way. That's pretty good, but just in general speaking, I liked all of them, and in fact, I really want to try to time attack those challenge levels. I haven't talked about time attacking yet in general. I'll get to that a little bit later, but for now, my goodness, I want to time attack these challenge levels. It just seems really really fun. I did it in general on my first time playing through these levels to reach a S rank, so I basically didn't leave that level until I got a S rank. That's how fun they were for me, and now I want to go back to most of them and do more. Of course, not all of them are the biggest hits. Some of them are a little, they're fine. Let's just get through these, but none of them really felt like a slog. All of them felt really fun and polished and just well designed, and that's exactly what I want out of this. And when it comes to original generations, I did not like the majority of those challenge side mission level thingies. They're not really my cup of tea for the most part. They're fine. There was just something I did just so I could complete the games. It was okay, but all of these were fun, and most of them were so fun that I want to replay them over and over again for a better time. That is high praise for, I want to say, side content. This is part of the main dish after all. You need to complete all of these in order to fight the final boss of the game and also the bosses of this game in general. But that being said, really good like third pillar of gameplay. We got the linear levels, open zone, challenge levels, and they're all just really really good, and most of them are fantastic. I really love them a lot personally. Speaking of bosses, let's get them out of the way. What do I think about the bosses in this game? I have surprisingly a lot of high praise about them. When it comes to bosses in any video game, for the most part, I usually don't like them. I kind of see them as a means to an end. If they're not that long or, they're not tedious of any way, I'm okay with them. I get their idea, but I'm not usually the most craziest when it comes to bosses. When a boss is really, really good and really, really fun and engaging, it could be the highlight of a game for me. And if it isn't that, then it's just a thing I do and I beat it because I want to play more of the game. And I feel that way so very often with Sonic the Hedgehog games. Ironically enough, Sonic Frontiers is the one time where in a Sonic game the bosses were like really really fun. They made it a big thing, and it was just really fun to engage with. I enjoy that a lot, but for the rest of the series, whether it be the classic games or the other 3D games, I don't really care for the bosses most of the time. Maybe I like one of them here and there, but it's just not my thing. I just don't care for them. But the bosses in Shadow Generations, all of them are fun. I genuinely want to replay them. I want to get S ranks on them. They're a good time. I don't know what they did. I don't know what kind of special sauce they stirred in this stew, but I want more. It genuinely is really, really good. I wasn't expecting it. I thought it was kind of going to be like an eye roll, like a Klarg. I got to stop playing the fun stuff to beat up some asshole. But no, beating up the assholes is fun in this case. So I like all the bosses in this game. They're not like the best thing in the world, not even the hardest things in the world, but aesthetically and presentation and vibes and music, they're good. It's a good time. I enjoyed all of them, and I look forward to replaying them again sometime in the near future, which I definitely will be doing. This is definitely going to be a game I come back to very, very often, probably for the rest of the year, and post it and past it. I mean, it's wonderful, and that is very very high praise coming from me. Again, just not a big not a big boss kind of person. I mean, I love Big Boss, but you know what I mean. That aside, good. I like what's going on here. Now let's talk about the story. I'm not gonna dig into any parts of it that much. I more want to talk about the overall quality of the story. It's good. I like it. It made me feel emotions. It made me feel good. It made me feel a little sad in a good way. Sad in a good way. It made me feel things. strongly. It's not the most amazing story, but it's definitely not bad. It's like it's great, I would say. It's better than good, but not super fantastic in my opinion. You know, when it comes to storytelling and stuff like that, some of it can be objective, like goods and not goods, and some of it could be subjective, definitely for sure. I mean, that goes for most things when it comes to the medium, you know, or art in general, and all that good stuff. However, for me, what I am looking for and what I was expecting going in, it was definitely better than what I was expecting, which wasn't. I wasn't gonna expect like a bad story. I was just expecting it to be fine, but good. But it was better than what I was thinking it was gonna be. But it didn't like completely blow my expectations out of the water. I overall had a good time with the story. I really enjoyed following it, and every step of the way made me want to keep going more and more and more until the end. You know, in terms of like wanting to see what happens next out of pure curiosity and also intrigue and genuine care. But you know, it wasn't the biggest deal for me. Just the gameplay alone was more than enough to keep me trucking along, and the story was kind of, for me. It's like a nice little bow on top, like a nice, really satisfying, fun bow on top. I really, really enjoyed it, and a big part that helped it a lot was the cutscenes themselves. No CGI cutscenes in this game, perfectly fine by me, but they had in-game cutscenes, and they're really really good, really expressive moments, really fun, you know, like scenes and action, and just it's such a huge step up from what they've been doing in cutscenes and Frontiers and oh, definitely Forces. And also Lost World. I'm trying. I think the last time they did like really, really, really fun cutscenes in Sonic was Unleashed. You know, Colors was fine. It wasn't bad, and then Generations is also perfectly fine. But the last time I felt really pumped about in-game cutscenes in a Sonic game, and just in general, was Unleashed, which is very old. Oh my god! But besides that, the in-game cutscenes, a humongous step up, the best it has been in the series in over like 14 years or some shit. My gracious, genuinely a good time. I love them. The way they were portrayed and everything, they felt fun. I'm not like the harbinger of like Sonic character dynamics or personalities, but all the characters felt in tune. If I were to complain about one thing about the cutscenes, it's not even the cutscenes themselves. It's just that Rouge de Bat sounds weird. I don't know when she's had this, you know, new or like current VA. But her actress, for me, does not fit the character. It's not the end of the world. I'm able to look past it and still enjoy her moments in the story. But besides that, it's fun. It's a good time, and I really, really enjoy that. All right, next up, I want to quickly talk about the music. The music is fine. I enjoyed the music overall. I don't really have much to say about it. I don't feel passionately about the soundtrack. Um, in very subjective taste, I don't think any of the tracks are like bad or anything. It's just mostly not my thing. I will say, one of the remixes for one of the levels that were used in the marketing campaign and advertisements, I had that. Sorry, excuse me. Whoa, had a big lunch today. Anyway, um, I really, really enjoyed it. And I've had that like, what's it called? Like that shortened version, just like saved in my playlist that I listen to often. Um, and listening to the full thing was a little disappointing because it took a while to get to the good part. But that's not a big deal. It's not a big deal though. It's not, no, not. But the idea is the music is perfectly fine. It's just not my thing. And that's okay, but I can expect it. Well, yeah, I hope so. I can respect it. I meant to say, and it's definitely there, and it's definitely fine. I think most people wouldn't have a problem with it. There is this one really goofy ass song, and people seem to be like hating it. I believe. I just think it's silly. I just kind of tune it out, and just like original generations, you're able to pick what music you want if you've unlocked it, you know, on any level that you're playing. So It's not even a big deal. If you don't want the goofy ass clown music, you can just, go ahead and pick any other song from the pantheon of Shadow's history, which is pretty nice. Another pretty great thing about the game is that it's very polished. I didn't really experience many glitches in this game, and the glitches I did see were just cosmetic, and they weren't even that bad. Like if you have Shadow walk up against like a corner of like some sort of, I don't know, railing or whatever, what have you. He might jitter around, a little bit. His feet might go a little crazy to like trying to figure out where I should step and what have you, stuff like that. And this one time I jumped on a box and like it broke, and Shadow kept spinning in place for like a few seconds, and then he just went back to normal. Very small stuff like that. I have definitely seen more sillier glitches, like for example, Shadow riding a rail and then maybe trying to homing attack at the same time, and then it kind of glitched out, but then he eventually got pushed back on track. It's not the biggest deal. In my experience, I experienced very small cosmetic glitches that did not interfere with the gameplay whatsoever, and that's really good. And I've spent like 14 hours on this game already, a little over that, I believe. So it's not like I just played through and it's just like, oh, that's it. All right, goodbye. But no, it was a wonderful time and just no glitches, no bad glitches, and that's good. I'm really glad they were able to have the time to polish it and refine it in all the ways possible. It was good. Oh, and another thing as well, off the top of my head here, they did not force your hand with automation. So here, let me try to explain this because I know some people kind of have an idea but don't really know like how to put it to words. Something ever since first like 3D mainline Sonic game, Sonic Adventure, up until now, that they always do is kind of like automate sections. Like that sections that kind of like play themselves or half play themselves, and if you go against it, then the game will kind of freak out or things won't just work or that kind of thing. That is a problem that the series has had for a while, and some entries were better about than others, like Unleashed and Colors and Generations. But other games, like the adventure games, and definitely Sonic Frontiers, suffered with like forcing perspectives onto you that might be a little unflattering, or just forced you into like a certain direction, even though you feel like you're supposed to be free in a 3D environment. That kind of stuff that takes options away from the player just at a moment's notice, sometimes without you even knowing or understanding what's going on and having to deal with it, even if it doesn't last long. It keeps happening over and over again, and it's just annoying to deal with. This game is fantastic about it. There are sections of levels, like in the linear levels, that have a little bit of automation for cutscenes and this and that, but they usually are very short. And even then, like if you try to fight against it, like nothing happens. You just, like the thing happens, and then whenever it's over, then you just resume back to normal gameplay. It is not detrimental. It doesn't take gameplay away from you at all. I don't think the open zone area takes control away from you whatsoever. Besides the cutscenes and, of course, loading into levels and whatever the case may be, it just lets you play the game. I mean, well, okay, there's some sections where like they, like force the camera's perspective, but there's not a lot of that. And again, it's basically you still have to play the game. You have to play the game in order to get through it, and it's not bad at all. Fantastic. That probably was one of, if not the biggest gameplay complaint I had with Sonic Frontiers, and to see them understand that it's a problem and fix it is a humongous win in my book. I am so happy they realized that taking away freedom movement from players constantly without any like warning, or even then just in a way that just felt too intrusive, was bad. It was just not good. But here, they did it. They fixed it. You're mostly entirely in control, and the parts that are automated are more than often than not totally, completely justified animated. Now, I will say there are a couple times when maybe like the beginnings of levels or just like little sections that felt a little silly being automated. Like yeah, again the cutscene's ending and now it's transitioning you from cutscene to the actual gameplay or beginning of levels. You know, like you have Shadow like maybe running along a path or on a rail or something. I don't know why. Like, there's no on-screen indicator of like cutscene's gone and now it's gameplay. It's kind of like up to you to figure out when that may be, which doesn't sound like a big deal, just like here. But when you're trying to time attack or just in general go as fast as possible in these kind of games, and not knowing when the game is playing itself for a moment and when you're in control, it feels weird. And you know, my general optic here is just to hold forward, you know, press the boost button every couple seconds and try to see if things are happening. Not the most fun. The parts of these that I hate the most are like when challenge levels start this way. They just don't feel good. There's this one in particular that like you're going along the hallway and that's like the first like 5 seconds. It's just you going forward. Most of them don't do this. Most of them like are very very short, are more very very clear and concise about when you're in control. But in general, this is the one time where the animation is a problem in the game, and I really hope they do less of this. Again, feel free to take control away from me during cutscenes and you know that kind of general thing. But once it looks like I am playing the game, I want to be playing the game. I don't want the game to be playing itself for a little bit and then just stop and then now like I don't know what's going on. I mean, I just don't think it's fun. I don't think most people like that, you know. Again, cutscenes fine. Gameplay, let me play. Just let me play. It is a bit of a problem, and you know, even if there were mods to fix this, I wouldn't want to download those mods because I want to have proper times to compare with friends and other people that I don't know, random strangers on the internet. You know, my times for levels and stuff, and you know, like modifying the game like at its core to give me an advantage over everyone else. You know, unfairly. That's not good. It's like a core game problem. It's not the end of the world, but it is the biggest pet peeve of mine from you know the time I've spent with the game, especially time attacking, and just not the most fun for me. Speaking of which, I want to talk a little bit about time attacking in you know just in general for the linear levels. I like it. They're fun. I've been having a good time with it. I'm just barely starting to really dig into the more finer details here, but I will say they're fun and the level design is great. The automation makes it a little hazy, a little blah, but not terrible. Doesn't ruin it. It's fine. The thing that makes it annoying for me to replay levels over and over again are the cutscenes in the middle. I love them. In terms of story, in terms of expressing characters and dynamics, I love them. I don't mind with characters talking to each other. You know, in a game, you know, like this, I enjoy you know character interaction. Even when you're in the midst of action and that kind of thing, I enjoy that in the you know earlier Sonic games, and whenever they've done it in general, or earlier as in the earlier 3D games, of course. But that aside, it's a bit much here. I totally get it. Again, story stuff, I totally get it. And also, like, beginning of those, like, major, like, show stopping cutscene moments, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they're masking the load time between, you know, the part of the level you were just playing and the next chunk. Um, since, you know, the scenery does change very, very, grandiosely. Sure, we'll go with that very much. But I just don't like it. I don't like how long some of these cutscenes are. I love the cutscenes. Again, it's really, really fun, really fun. But when you're playing a level over and over and over again and having to hear all these voice lines over and over again, it gets a little annoying. I know I could just, you know, turn off the audio and maybe listen to some sort of other audio or talk to friends and whatever. But I like to hear in-game audio when playing a game, even like it's over and over again, retrying levels with like Sonic or any other speedy type of game. Having these long-winded cutscenes that like take control away from you multiple times per most of these linear levels, well, not most of them, but like a good chunk. I don't think it's most, but a good chunk. It is a little bit, man. It makes time attacking feel less encouraged. I think a good middle ground would be to still have cutscenes like these, but like not completely take away control for a long period of time, just for a little bit, have the cutscene happen and let the player back into a control or like be able to keep moving forward faster. I don't know. I know this is like their first time trying to do something like this, and maybe they won't even have these kind of like, hey, let's stop, like what the gameplay and more focus on the really cool or trippy or whatever like visual elements or storytelling, that kind of stuff. But I feel like for me, as someone who loves to time attack 3D Sonic levels, very intrusive and very, very kind of starting to get annoying on my nerves. I've been in time attacking, mostly focusing on the first level, the first zone, the first act, whatever the case you want to be call it. That's a really weird way to say it. That's a really weird. Yeah. Whatever. You know what I mean. The first thing that you play, I've been time attacking that. All right, and everything that I've been saying, the automation and the cutscenes for it, been getting on my nerves a little bit. I know not all the levels are like that. I understand, but like it doesn't take away that it doesn't feel the best. Maybe the solution really is just I just don't worry about it. I think having a no dialogue option would be nice. Like maybe once you beat the game, you can have like turn off, like dialogue interaction in levels. I think that would definitely help. I don't want to hear the same voice lines over and over and over again. Um, that's just a personal thing, but hey, that's what it is. Sure. Although I will give props for the music not restarting every time you retry a level. Of course, not just completely leaving the level and then going back in. If you, pause the game with its beautiful, stunning menus. Oh my god, the triangles flowing out of the banner. Oh, I love triangles. Anyway, if you hit the retry button in that menu, the music just keeps going, and then like it doesn't skip a beat, and that's good. I like that. It's not even like a big problem with other Sonic games. I don't mind that the music are restarting, but this is just a nice way to kind of feel like you're in control. Of course, there's some cases where the music changes, and if you restart the level, then it also restarts the song with the original song, I believe. So not a big deal in that case, but you get the general idea of what I'm trying to say, I believe. Hope. I think that's fine. Overall, it's not the worst thing, but it makes these levels less replayable compared to other 3D Sonic levels just in its history. So that is definitely something that Sonic Team and everyone involved with that kind of like moment to moment gameplay assurance or like creation even to understand. I don't know how much people are going to complain about this. I'm sure there might be a vocal minority already like campaigning that this is the devil online, just like really, really harshly. It's not terrible, but for me and my taste, in terms of I want to keep going, I want to be in control as much as possible. It's not the greatest, but again, not terrible. In terms of non-spoiler discussion for Shadow Generations, that is essentially what I think is everything I want to say. However, I want to dig into Dark Beginnings, which was the around 12 to 13 minute animated, beautifully animated, I should say, like animation, like promotional animation. But don't take that in the worst way possible. Like, yeah, it's promoting a game, but with a wonderful, lovely story. I won't be getting into it, like in terms of like the spoilers. That's not really needed for this discussion here. But I will say, if you have not watched Sonic X Shadow Generations Dark Beginnings, you must immediately. If you casually like Sonic, you must. Um, One thing that I don't, I don't know, it's kind of like you have to be in the know with like general Sonic knowledge to completely enjoy it. There was a couple things about it that didn't make sense to me, but then I looked into it later and I was like, oh, it's awesome. But like overall, if you know about who the hell Shadow the Hedgehog is and his whole deal, oh, it's so good. Also, you probably should watch this before playing Shadow Generations. I mean, it's on YouTube. Just look it up. It's free. Watch it now. But yeah, it's immaculate. It's amazing. I love the animation. I love the expressions. The voice acting's really well done. Rouge de Bat's a little off for me, but it's perfectly fine. And surprisingly, pretty good comedy in there. Um, and also fantastic action and the choreography. Choreography. So that's always been a hard word for me to say, by the way. Choreography. Whatever. The things that are happening, the people, how they move and zip and zooms and gooms. Oh, oh, so good. I always thought that a Sonic animated series that took itself decently seriously, still have its lighthearted moments and sillies, but took itself more seriously and be handled by a very talented studio, to tell, maybe retell like the stories and the series, or have a brand new, story in general, would be amazing. Like maybe something like Sonic X, but a little less campy, kind of deal. Whatever the case may be, this was amazing. Definitely my most favorite like animated Sonic the Hedgehog thing there has been. Sonic movie 2 comes close. That movie is pretty funny for me. And I love Tails and Knuckles in that movie. Although their dialogue, all three of like the animated character dialogue in that movie is a little off, is a little much at times, but overall, love that movie a lot. This 12-minute promotional, emotional, gundotional video rivals this like 2-hour movie. It's crazy. I watched both of them very recently too, by the way, so it's like they're both fresh in my mind. Um, but yeah, fantastic. What a great lead up into the game itself. It wasn't necessarily needed, but was it greatly desired. I've heard nothing but high praise for this, and I hope that us praising it gives Sega the green light. Well, not the green light, but gives the studio and the writers and everyone involved the green light to make a more fleshed out Sonic animated series, even if it was like five, like 13-minute episodes long, whatever, something like that, something like that. That would be amazing if they had a very fun story to tell. Again, pretty fine. I'll be more than happy to see, older Sonic stories retold in this kind of way, and maybe, with additional details and whatever the case may be. But the general idea is I want more stuff like this. This was amazing to watch, and I am so happy about this. I also feel very similarly about the Knuckles thing. Not the Knuckles show. No, 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 not that. No, no, no. That's a disaster of its own. But what's it like? The Sonic Frontiers. Was it like not prologue? Whatever it was called. Like the animated short they made to promote that game. I never cared about Knuckles the Echidna all too much. Like I thought it was fine, pretty interesting, but not. I didn't really was really into him. That singular animated short made me love the character. I want to see more of him. I want to see more of that action. And I always really enjoyed Shadow the Hedgehog, but it made me love him even more, especially with the things that they did with Dark Beginnings. So yeah, I figured I might as well just throw in a like little mini Dark Beginnings, like what do you even call like review in here, just as like bonus. Why not? I probably wouldn't ever talk about it other than here, unless someone asked me for whatever reason. Like, oh, we'll talk about Dark Fantasy. Yeah. I don't know, but it's good. Just a good lead up, fantastic animation for a very lovingly, amazingly crafted game. All right, that is all the non spoiler stuff I have here. I will be digging into spoilers just a moment. All right, I'm gonna do it. I'll talk about the story. I'm gonna talk about specific gameplay elements that you shouldn't be spoiled on because if you don't know, it's pretty good. All right. Here we go. Here we go. Let's talk about story. I liked it. Thought it was good. Thought it was good. Black Doom, fun as ever. Of course, I don't really mind him returning, because it's generations. You know, it's like oh the past. Oh, we'll relive it in a new way, especially with Shadow Generations. They did a great job doing that kind of thing, and I think it's so interesting that Shadow has such a, like strong sense of self despite the fact that he knows he's giving into what Doom wants, it still helps him be more powerful, and especially with the help of Maria, like being the light in his life, essentially, and quite literally in some points. Um, it ultimately just helps him be the best himself that he could be. Also, Gerald Robotnik is super interesting. He's just a nice guy. Surprisingly, I have not read his journal entries. I just completely forgot to do that, and I mean, I'm sure it's a really good read. I just haven't done it. I'll be able to do that. So sorry, I'm not going to be able to talk about that here. But as a character himself, pretty cool. Also has some like, expedition. Is that the right how? Is that how it's pronounced? Expedition. Yeah, but he has like, if you talk to him in the overworld, then he has interesting stuff to say. Um, and it definitely fills in some gaps in Sonic lore. Ian Flynn doing his Ian Flynn thing. If you don't know who Ian Flynn is, do your research. He wrote the entire game and script by himself. That's crazy. I mean, I'm happy for him. What a fantastic gig. Um, but anyway, he likes to reference a lot of like the happenings of Sonic media. Sometimes it's really cute and fun, and sometimes it's a little much, but overall it's not that bad. And especially with a game like this where it's celebratory of the past, definitely works out. And hey, we have Mr. like Chaos Emerald Research Man, explain the lore, and then he does, and also other random stuff too, like Maria saying that she has a baby sister and etc. Oh yeah, all the other characters here are fun as well. Orbot and Cubot are silly. No, they're characters I tolerate happily. I enjoy their presence. I'm not crazy about them, but they're fun. Fuck that like final like reward you get for collecting all the Bolt collectibles. Dude, what a waste of time. It really isn't worth it. I hope someone makes a mod where you could just like figure out where all the collectibles are, like if you could just like spend rings for it or something. I don't know. It's not even worth it. I don't care about no fucking clock, man. um, Rouge was fun. I loved her dialogue, and especially near the end, like reassuring Shadow and being a good friend. I feel like it's the most chummy she's ever been with anyone. Like genuinely, she's been flirtatious with Knuckles in the past, and of course she's always been nice to Shadow and Omega, in a snarky way, but in a fun way. But she had a nice heart to heart with Shadow, and it was pretty nice. Big the Cat's here. Dialogue is hilarious. It made me feel very happy on the inside. He's fun. I like Big the Cat, and just seeing him like just casually talk about his adventures in the past and just the crazy shit that's on his mind. It's fun. What a fun dialogue here and there. And whew, Sonic the Hedgehog. I really love how they recontextualize the Shadow boss fight in Sonic Generations for for Shadow. It makes 1000% sense that he doesn't want to beat Sonic in an unfair way. He respects the guy after all. He wants to be fair and square. And also it makes sense why he lost. I always was worried that like maybe they're just not gonna talk about it, or they're gonna like find a stupid way to, just like kind of be like, oh yeah, that's what happened. It makes complete sense, and it's good. That was like my biggest concern for the writing, besides the ending. And yeah, they did it. They knocked it out of the park, and I genuinely have been thinking about that scene over and over again for days now. It's a fun scene. It's not the best thing in the world, but that doesn't matter. I had fun with it, and it's really just a little nice, not only homage to the Shadow Boss fight in Generations, but like just the idea of this is how it went down. This is how Shadow felt about it. And seeing that perspective, like, oh, it is wonderful. I loved how it was done. Bravo, Ian Flynn. You're Flynning up in here, buddy. I don't know. Anyway, um, that aside, let's talk about the finale here. It works, but it's unsatisfying. On purpose. I feel like that's very on purpose. I mean, when you lose someone that you love so much, it's usually never satisfying. And even if it is, it's gonna be something that you bear with you, like a big hole in your heart for the rest of your life. And of course, it would have been nice to have a little aftermath to see like where Shadow ended up, like after Sonic Generations happened, like him maybe like sitting on the cliffside thinking about his his life with Maria, and maybe one last smile, and like one last like line of dialogue in his own mind, reflecting on what's going on. I would have liked that much better than this, but I think the intention of this white space, I believe that's what it's called, like the open zone area, white space, is crumbling. Maria and Gerald Robotnik are fading away, going back to their time period. Shadow is sad, sheds a tear, and then it leads into the finale of Sonic Generations. And yeah, it fits. It really fits with the motif of I want to see my loved one again, but it's kind of a monkey's paw situation, and I'm very happy for Shadow, and I'm genuinely happy that he's improving as a character. Character development in Sonic isn't something I like yearn for, but it's something I've greatly appreciated and adored for the most part throughout, like this modern, like new era of Sonic writing, especially with Tails. He was done fantastically in Frontiers, and I will be talking about Amy soon enough. All right, I will. But yeah, getting to have that with Shadow was lovely, and of course, there's always going to be a baseline status quo, I believe, but having these characters kind of like grow out of the mold that they've been in for so long, and but in a way that feels natural and like just fun, it's lovely, and I love it. Also, like this is just like a me like writing brain kind of thing. If you don't know, I like to write, for funsies on my own. Try to like take character interactions into account. Character writing is the most fun for me, and I enjoy doing that. The one thing that bothered me with character writing in this game is just how Shadow handled himself around Maria, and how Maria wasn't more surprised about Shadow. I don't think they had the time or the budget for them to really like flesh that whole thing out. But a little bit of time to kind of have like Shadow like maybe freak out a little more that Maria is alive, and it's like a past iteration of her, and then and her being scared of like maybe not scared but like surprised and just very confused about Shadow and how he's changed so much, and how his attitude is just, well, I mean, a little bit more grim than she last remembered. Then I think that would have been interesting. And again, I just don't think they had the time to really dig into that. They really did a lot with what I'm assuming is a decent budget, and limited time here. But suffice it to say, it's not the biggest thing in the world. It's just a little pet peeve of mine. But again, if they had more time to flesh it out, like if this was like a full retail release standalone, they definitely would have. I feel like they would have. But as is, it's not terrible. Just a little weird. So keep that in mind, Mr. Flynn, going forward. Try to squeeze in those kind of things the best you can. Yeah. But, again, I also understand the restraints and all that, so I'm trying to like not be too harsh about it. Overall, really, really well done. I have lots of love and fondness for the story that was told. All right, now I want to talk more about the mechanics for Shadow Generation. So, Doom Wings. They're fucking awesome. The way they're introduced, the way they're used in the levels, they're so good. I'm so happy that you have an option to play without them in the levels as a selectable thing. Oh, so nice. Yeah, they're good. I like them. Also, it was really funny to like use them for the first time and then go through spike balls and be like, "Is my game bugging out?" I genuinely like closed out of the game and reopened it because I thought it was bugging out. And then I heard like a day later about like listening to like reviews of the game that that's just a thing he does. I don't think it was ever said anywhere, and if it was, I just completely missed it. But that was funny. That was a little funny thing. So yeah, like the Doom Wings are the supersonic equivalent in this game. Fair enough. And also, you can glide around. I gotta say, they're really really fun, and I enjoy like making new optimizations and paths and etc. Replaying through levels, and I'm sure I continue to will do that. But at least for the levels I have played, again, it's mostly just the Final Rush Act 1 and a little bit of Rail Canyon Act 1. Um I feel like the way that the wings are supposed to work is that you kind of have more freedom of like where to go. And there is a lot of sections where you're free to like glide around and kind of make your own path, as best as you can with what obstacles are ahead. However, there are times where it just feels like there's a random ass invisible ceiling just pushing you down or like constricting you on like where to go. I know there's limits to these things. I completely understand, but it kind of felt disappointing because I felt like, yes, I'm making my own path within limitations already with how the levels are designed, but this does not make it easier. It kind of feels like a slight cop out. I don't know if most of the levels are like this or not. I couldn't tell you, but it's a little downside, but it isn't a big deal. I overall really like the mechanic. I think it's really fun, and I'm very appreciative that it's its own thing, and you can like perfectly time attack these levels without the wings, just fine, just normal. That's awesome. That's really really cool. Oh yeah, I also want to talk about Doom Morph. I really wish they like explained more like what to do. This is the ability that I was mentioning earlier, where it didn't really explain that well, and some people are upset about that. I like it. It's really fun. I mean, sometimes it acts weird, and the boost on it feels like super unreliable in terms of like it going like a little too fast with like not great handling, and sometimes you just get turned around for no reason when like bumping like up against the wall. It's not the greatest, but I still like it a lot. It's still a really fun idea. I would like to see this general idea done again in the future with a little bit more fine tuning. That would be great. That would be nice. And better explanation if they're going to have the same mechanics. I want to explain the mechanics for people who don't know how it works the best, just in case you're curious. So here's a fun little tutorial for you. You have the Dune Morph by first unlocking it, and then basically turn into like this alien squid form, and by like homing attack, homing attacking, or just touching the goopy balls, and then you can homing attack, or at least press the homing attack button rather, to like shoot a tentacle out of you to grab onto the ball. You have a couple options here. You can release immediately. They get zipped directly to the ball's placement with very, very, very little momentum. Usually, this is not worth it. There's some spots where it makes sense because you don't have to like swing around. But if you want momentum, don't do that. Um, if when you're swinging through, when you're directly underneath the slime ball, if you let go of the homing attack button, then you'll be shot up. I did not know that until I looked it up. It was not fun. It was very annoying, especially because there was only one collectible in the entire game that made me feel very frustrated, and it had to do with that mechanic. That was not good. But other than that, it's fine. And like once you actually know how to do the move, perfectly doable and fun. It's fun, I promise. And then also you could just hold the homing attack button just to swing through. If you're like jumping from the slime balls to slime balls in the middle of the air or what have you, this is the way to do it. Spider-Man ass kind of swing. You know what's going on here. Um, so there you go. That's how you do Doom Morph. Just in case people don't know, I understand why people don't like it. I think it's fun. I like how you can also go through greats. Very Splatoon inspired indeed. Good. Take inspiration from good game mechanics. Now, I understand some people don't like how Sonic, just in general as a series, and you know, at this modern era, unapologetically steals ideas from other games. As long as it does it well, and obviously isn't just a complete ripoff, I don't mind. Like I like these abilities, and they're done well, you know, in their respective games of origin, and in this case, you know, with these abilities, definitely done well here. It's just about will it actually suit the gameplay, you know, like the moment to moment gameplay, and will it be fun? Will it be functional to even use? That's the kind of thing that should matter the most, more than oh they want to steal ideas. I mean, here's the thing: there is no such thing as original ideas more often than not anymore. Many things are directly inspired by other things or accidentally inspired by other things, and that's okay. As long as they're like they try to do their own spin on it, their own little fun Z kind of way, that's all that matters. So, if that's the kind of thing that peeves you off, it's never going to leave. It's everywhere. You just don't know the source of origin. So, be mad, I guess. It's not going to stop. But in any case, that is everything. I believe that is everything I have to say about Shadow Generations. Um, I love it a lot. I genuinely think it's a 10 out of 10 experience. It's a little on the short side, but again, it's the Sonic game of Sonic games as of right now. Hey, it's super worth the price, and you get one of the best Sonic games of all time bundled in with it. In my opinion, you get both of the best Sonic games for the price of one. It's not even like the price of a full price game. It's $50, and it's gonna go on sale anyway. Because Sega games always go on sale, relatively fast compared to other, you know, competing anybody. So it's not a big deal, and I think it's wonderful. If you're a parent for a child who likes Sonic the Hedgehog and you're somehow listening to this, oh yeah, they're gonna love this. They're gonna this really good game. Christmas is saved by a $50 Sonic. Um, but you're probably not a parent, and you're probably not gonna look for me for advice for what games to buy for your child. But I don't know. I don't know. Like Christmas is around the corner, you know. So I figure might as well throw that in there. I don't know why. Just happens. All right, I got a couple last things I want to discuss for this episode. I know it's been a bit long. It was longer than I thought it was going to be, but you know, we roll with the punches. We keep going and smalling. So, next we have a bit of a point of contention that I feel like is too big for me to ignore, and then the other thing is the title of the episode. Oh, and anyway, okay, let's talk about the dialogue changes in original Sonic Generations. So, what do we have here? Well, I have words and feelings, as a lot of people do. Let's start somewhere. The original story of Sonic Generations is just a bare bones means to an end. There's this time eating monster ruining Sonic's birthday party. That's it. That's all you need to re explore these really, really fun, old, classic, iconic locations of Sonic's past. That's it. That's all it was. And I really didn't care for the story of the game, and some moments were cute. And Tails says that he felt like he died, but you know, suffice it to say, it was a non offensive, decent enough story. They decided to rewrite the dialogue of this game for this remaster. So what does that exactly mean? I okay, so number one, they I'm trying to be nice about this, but because I know like real people, I hope real people like went in and spent the time to rewrite this, and oh yeah, the voice actors had to re-record everything too. So I say this with all the respect in my heart, I really do. But here's the thing. No. Okay, here's the real thing. This game didn't really need a rewriting. Like most Sonic games don't need to be rewritten, in my opinion. I mean, some story elements were a little weird in older Sonic games, but if we're just focusing on generations, Sonic generations to be specific here, all right? It did not need it. It was unnecessary. I wouldn't say it was a waste of time for the writers and voice actors to do all this, but it wasn't really needed. It didn't matter. And I feel like it did more harm than good. They didn't reanimate most of the cutscenes. The lip syncing is off because of that, and on top of that, some things don't make sense. I'm tapping the classic Sonic 8 Angel Island board. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a scene where if you finish, what's it? I think the third level. Yeah. The third level of the game, Angel Island, and you save Knuckles as classic Sonic. The original line was something along the lines of "Thanks for rescuing me. By the way, did you gain weight? Because like classic Sonic's a bit of a plump boy, all right." And then now in the rewrite, he's like, "Where's the rest of my island?" And classic Sonic still does like the sad kind of motion of him, like putting his hand on his round tum. Just like he ate it. That's the whole meme that's going around the Sonic community right now. That is like the perfect encapsulation for like the general problems of this rewrite. It isn't that it was rewritten. It was that there wasn't enough time and resources, from what we understand, for them to make the cutscenes make sense. And also, it didn't even need to be rewritten in the first place. The other major, big point of contention here is Amy Rose. Now, I'll preface it like this: I am indifferent about Amy Rose. I know a lot of people love her, and I'm very happy for you. Genuinely, I mean this. I'm very happy for you. I never was a fan of Amy. I always saw her as just kind of like girl Sonic, but like she has a hammer, which is awesome growing up. And now in modern day, she, in my mind, she's like, I love you, Sonic. Have 1,000 children with me. And then also, I have a hammer and tarot cards. But in more recent years, whether it be for the writers or Sega mandates, I don't really know the reason here. But the writing for the character completely veered off and steered away from the idea of Amy is completely love struck over Sonic. I'm okay with this, but it never felt natural. It was a big complaint in Sonic Frontiers. I believe I mentioned in my Sonic the Hedgehog retrospective episode. But other than that, it just never felt natural. Maybe it was more natural than I thought. Like she wasn't really focused on that in Forces. I don't, and from what I've read in the comics, which is like up to issue 24 of IDW, including the Whisper and Tangle miniseries and annuals and whatever, you know what I mean. Like, yeah, it's not focused on that much, at all ever actually, but still, like, this is a big part of her character, and to see it not acknowledged in Frontiers was very off-putting, especially because they handled Knuckles and Tails' like character like arcs and everything way better there, and then they just completely changed Amy to go from like obsessing over Sonic in a few scenes to being tame and completely not acknowledging her like deep lust for Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, again, I don't really care about this character all too much. I don't mind her. She's not like taking anything away from me. But also, that was her defining character trait for me, besides the hammer. And then she doesn't have that. So now she's just a girl with a hammer in my mind. which is not right. It just doesn't feel right. And again, I don't mind the character changing. It's just that it happened so suddenly, and I got completely like taken out of this game. Like rewrites are fine, but maybe try to preserve the original vision intact. And even if it was like a mandate by Sega of you're allowed to rewrite Sonic Generations story, but you have to make Amy act this way because that's the way she is and that's the way she wants to be portrayed, or whatever the case may be, that doesn't sit right with me. I just don't like that. That is like the one genuine massive issue I have with this entire game's release. It just doesn't feel right. And I know you can still technically buy the original 2011 release of Sonic Generations, albeit in a bundle. And I do have my own copy. I'm happy with that copy, and I can play it anytime. Again, I don't play this for the story. It's just the idea of if we're gonna remaster Sonic games and we're gonna rewrite them so they have different, hopefully better dialogue, I don't want the core of what happened, of the characters and everything, just to be changed because of mandates or because that's not how they are now or whatever the case may be. I think the best case scenario here, if it is a Sega mandate for not to have Amy completely fawn over Sonic anymore, is to have like a Looney Tunes style like warning label when booting up the game or like the story of the game for the first time. It'll just be like, hey, this is a product of its time. We don't want to like share these ideals or whatever. Like, like it really isn't that big of a deal. Like I could see some people having, or I mean, even a lot of people having a problem with like how Amy has just been portrayed in general. But again, some people are just like that, and it wasn't like in a toxic way. Like she's a perfectly fine character, and sometimes it was annoying to see her obsess over Sonic, but like that is just a character's history. And ironically enough, with not only with the game honoring Sonic's history, but just the writing in general, dearly and deeply honoring Sonic the Hedgehog's history. It's so weird to see this character, like who's been around for so long, like be rewritten and changed. It's just weird, and I don't like that. So that's kind of my feelings on it. If it was just the original writing, or more or less the original writing, and Amy was still relatively intact in terms of personality in some way, that would have been fine. And if they didn't want to do that, if it was like an all or nothing kind of thing, then I'd rather they don't change it. So that is my biggest criticisms. It makes me worried what future Sonic remasters might look like in terms of story. I only want a story rewrite if the story needs to be rewritten. And even if it needs to be rewritten, I want the characters to behave like how they're supposed to at that point in time. Because now it just doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't feel right. And again, it isn't the worst thing in the world. It just is weird. I hope you understand, where I'm coming from here. But that's that. That is the only thing I have to say about it. Other than that, from what I've seen, from what I've played, Sonic Generations and this remaster is great. It's just the original experience. My favorite Sonic game, debatably against this and Unleashed, back and forth, really, really good. And I'm really happy that the gameplay was preserved and they touched it up a little bit. Add some like Chow collectibles. I don't care about that. Rot away, babies. I don't. So mean. Okay, I do like Chow, but I'm not like crazy about them. Okay, but seriously, they didn't do anything crazy or stupid with the gameplay, which is the right call. But man, dialogue changes and the Amy and the banana. Not a fan. Not the end of the world. Just hope they learned their lesson here, because this is important in a way, to like preserve the things. I mean, like think of it like this: if you want us to care about these characters, why would you want to like alter their history to make them completely different, like something that they're not? You can't have both. You just can't. I mean, you can change them to be different and newer things in a natural way. That's cool. That's good. But you can't just change the past. You ain't no time traveler wizard. Nuh-uh. So, obviously no hate to the writers or everyone involved. It's just me. Please don't do that. Now we have reached the true meat and potatoes of the episode. Shadow Generations has made me a Sonic fan. So I want to talk about this for a little bit. I don't even have a lot to say about this, surprisingly, but I want to kind of experience my Sonic journey. I know I've talked about this extensively um, in the Sonic the Hedgehog retrospective episode that I mentioned earlier, but I'm going to kind of give you the condensed version of like my general journey and then catch you up with what happened since then. So I got into the series because, it was popular. I got Unleashed on the Wii and I got the Genesis Classic Collection, whatever it's called, for the DS with like Sonic 1, 2, 3 and Knuckles, and the DS. It was fine and I enjoyed it. It was fun. But I didn't really get into Sonic until Sonic Rush. But even then, I wouldn't really call myself a fan. Like, I was a casual enjoyer. And, it was really cool to see Sonic and Smash Brothers brawl. And then, carried over to, 4 Wii and then 4 Wii U, rather, like Smash 4 and Ultimate. And, I generally kept up with the series. Ironically, I never played Sonic Colors, which was like the actual Wii Sonic game. I played Lost World on Wii U the year it came out. I got it for Christmas. Thanks, Grandma. Really cool. And then I don't know. I guess I played the classic games again when they came out on mobile. Thank you guys, everyone who worked on that. Great job. But in general, I was just kind of like, I like Sonic Rush. Never played Rush Adventure, by the way. And Sonic Unleashed was also fun. I like that a lot, but I wasn't really into it. Like, I would kind of like play through these games and then like forget about them, Like, that's kind of it. But Sonic Mania came out, and my best friend at the time was raving so positively about it, and I'm like, all right, I gotta get a copy. Only $20? That's a steal. Yeah, it was a steal. It's fucking awesome, and I'm not even a big fan of 2D Sonic. I've come to realize not bad. At least the good games are not bad, of course, but I just much prefer the 3D Sonic stuff. Whether it's Boost or the adventure style, whatever the case may be, it's way more interesting for me. That's a conversation for another day. I don't even know if I had it, if I've talked about that before, but that's just a me thing. 2D Sonic's fine. Just, I don't know, the third dimension is fun. Even the 2D sections, the gameplay, and whatever. That's not important for now. What is important is that I really liked Sonic Mania, and I'm really happy that the series seemed to be going in a better direction. And then I heard about what happened with Sonic Forces, and then I lost all faith. Throughout all this time, I, saw the reviews and all that going on, happenings of 2010s, like internet era of Sonic, people bashing the older games, like Adventure was never good, oh 06 was terrible, what the fuck, Forces, it was just all bad. And of course, you had there people that are like, guys, Generations is a saving grace, and oh, Colors is pretty quaint, and if you just play the daytime stages of Unleashed, oh, it's great, that is the general sentiment, and it's a little more nuanced than that, but the general idea is, I felt under the propaganda that Sonic was bad and a mess and weird. And the thing is that it kind of was true for the time. Like, Sonic was kind of bad with like Forces and Lost World. I mean, I liked it, but I was a kid and I haven't played it again since. But Sonic wasn't the way it's supposed to be, and then the Generations, like gameplay was great, and then another thing evolved from that, and then it was all thing, and I'm very familiar, and you yourself might be very familiar with all that kind of thing. And because of all that mess, I just didn't want to engage with Sonic deeply. Every once in a while, I'll fancy a nice Sonic, but I wouldn't really get into it. But as time went on, I've became more curious about the series, and I played Frontiers when it came out. I even live streamed it for like 7 hours straight, and it was awesome. And it's not my most favorite Sonic game. I don't think I'm itching to play it again and anytime soon. But I liked it for what it was, despite all of its flaws, because of the heart and the passion. And then I started reading the comics, and the comics were really fun, but I didn't have that final push to really make me feel like a Sonic fan, to make me really adore this franchise, despite how fun the IDW comics are and how I respect Sonic Frontiers. Shadow Generations really cemented my newfound love, my undying love of Sonic the Hedgehog as a franchise. But why? What did Shadow Generations do that Frontiers didn't, or anything? I think it was both a combination of the right time, the right place, and the passion. I got to saw that Sonic Team was stepping in the right direction. Of course, they could always falter with the next mainline release, and the cycle of Sonic madness continues. But honestly, with how things have been going, especially since Frontiers, I'm feeling confident. And even if things go a little awry, I'm kind of very interested to see the ride. Like, I'm getting more deep in with the community and enjoying a lots of Sonic content of many variety, and then, just in general, I like the games. Like, I play a modded version of Sonic Generations original to like make it play and look like and feel like Unleashed because it's awesome, and why not? But that aside, it just, generally speaking, I like this. The gameplay loop is fun. The community, when they're not being crybabies, is really, really fun. And the memes and the music and the story. I mean, Sonic's story isn't the most important thing to me, but to see the right people at the right place finally take home and care is awesome. And I'm really excited to see where Sonic goes next. I want the next adventure to be fun and grand and taken all the lessons they learned and applied it again, just like Shadow Generations. And I'm very curious. I want to read more of the comics. I want to catch up with that, hopefully, the coming year. And I want to see where Sonic goes next. I'm not expecting a next mainline entry next year. I want them to take their time a little bit. 2026 is probably a good general idea of, oh, hey, this is Sonic new, But all that to say is that the passion from the fans, the love poured into these, the past couple of releases when it comes to mainline, not counting superstars. I know it's technically mainline, but just but putting aside superstars, just the passion from like main Sonic Team games, I should say. That's a better way to put it. Main Sonic Team games, they have a one-way dream, and they're pushing to make it as wonderful as it can be, and it's never going to be perfect. It's always going to have the weight of its history on its back, but I love it. I've grown to love it, and I've grown to embrace the series in my heart, and I'm so ready for what's next. Take your time. Take your time. But I'll be blasted as fast as I can for whatever comes next. I'll keep enjoying the stories that you have to tell, and I'll keep enjoying all the friends that are along with me and on this road. And I'm very excited to see what's next. I think everything about Shadow Generations, all the good stuff I should say, really helped me push me towards this newfound love. The level design and the Sonic team understanding what's right, and the honoring of the history, and not, like, bad way, just very respectful, just all of it. All of it led me to really look back at the series and be like, yeah, I love this. This is something I want in my life, like, more deeply. So, congratulations, everyone in Sonic Team, and anyone else who had any hand in it. Shadow Generations, you did great. so great that I'm a lifelong fan now. And I've always been teetering on like the middle point for the past few years, but I'm over the edge now. This is me officially proclaiming myself as a Sonic fan. Don't make me regret it. Keep making great experiences. I believe in you. And if you stumble and tumble again and again, as long as you have the passion, I'll be around. I will be around. When the passion dies, I'll stay around for a little while longer and see if you can find new life. But for now, there's a lot of games for me to enjoy, both relating to Sonic and not Sonic, and I will happily wait to see what's next. And that is how Shadow Generations and, my general history with Sonic made me a fan of the series. There we go. Now, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm really thirsty and I'm tired. But thank you for listening to this entire episode. It meant a lot to me, really. Just to get all these thoughts out. It was a good time. I enjoy yelling about this on my microphone and 5:30 p.m. If you want more of this, support the show in any way possible. I don't know, you get the general idea. What would really help the most is to share this episode or just whatever you like around to people who would enjoy it as well. That would be great. You don't have to. Don't feel obligated. But if you want stuff like this to happen more often, more often than like what, half a year, then oh god, then let your voices be heard. Let your passion be strong, and I'll try my best. For now, I'm gonna get out of here, slap it together, push it out in the world, like I'm giving birth to a big hunky baby. All right, bye bye.